All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Before we get started, I just want to read a short disclaimer. This webinar is provided for general information purposes only and does not constitute legal or professional advice on behalf of the panelists or the Fortuna Chamber of Commerce. We encourage anyone watching to obtain proper legal or other professional advice specific to their situation before acting on any information in this webinar. Okay, and with that, I will introduce our two panelists. So Lisa Fryrear from State Farm Insurance, if you'd like to give a little introduction bio of yourself, introduction bio.
Let's see, local State Farm agent. My office is in Eureka on the corner of Myrtle and West. I'm pretty much all over the place in terms of the county. My office is in Eureka, like I said, but my home is in Fortuna. So I wake up and go to bed here every night. So happy to be a member of the chamber.
Yes, we appreciate that. And Kevin Bradley from Allstate Insurance, welcome.
Thank you. I'll piggyback on Lisa. My office is here in Fortuna at 1049 Main Street. I'm right across from Green's Pharmacy. And I'm just the opposite of Lisa. I live in Eureka, but my office is in Fortuna. And we're always welcome to have any questions at any time after this as well.
Great, awesome. And if anybody's having trouble hearing or anything, just put a message in chat so I know that if you guys can hear okay and if there's any technical difficulties on, as you're watching. Okay, so the first question I have for you both, we'll start with Lisa for this one. Have you noticed an increase in claims as a result of the pandemic?
I have not. And actually it's quite the opposite, just because we don't have a lot of people on the road. Currently, a lot of people are staying home, sheltering in, they're not driving their cars. So we haven't had a lot of auto claims. On the flip side of that, I have had a lot of calls from business owners, concerned about their coverage, concerned about their business, those types of things. And I have reached out to a lot of them as well. So that's pretty much what we've been busy with currently, but not a lot of claims as of yet. I think that's still to be determined.
Okay, great. And Kevin, do you want to answer the same question?
Sure. To piggyback on Lisa, there's been less claims, and Allstate and State Farm have both been very proactive in the fact, because there's been less claims, that we're giving back refunds or rebates to our customers because of the fact that they're not out there and there's less risk. And on the business side as well, I've been kind of proactively reaching out to some of our business owners just to check in and see how they're doing. But as of yet, there's really nothing out there. Claims are down. The only thing I see people inquiring about is when do I get my refund, or how does that apply?
Yeah. And what you mentioned, you've been reaching out besides getting their stimulus money or their loans. Do they have any other concerns right now, maybe related to reopening or running their business?
Are you addressing that to me or Lisa?
Yeah, we'll start with you and then we'll go to Lisa.
Okay. Actually, really, there's nothing really. Most of them are just trying to find out when they can open. That's their main concern. And sometimes they'll ask us, have we heard anything? Because we're all looking to get some information, and we all have different conduits that we receive that in. The only thing I can tell you that I've been looking into just recently is Allstate is now looking at the possibility of doing a second wave of the rebates or our credits going back to our customers. So that is in the works. I'm not sure if it's going to happen, but there's discussion that it could.
And that's in addition to the rebates that the insurance commissioner had already required?
No, we did this proactively. We're actually the first company that started. We did 15% on a customer's policy for 2 months, and we're in that second month now. So we're discussing to possibly do that for an extended, and I'm not sure if that period's gonna be 1 or 2 months yet, or if it's even gonna happen, but the discussions are in the works. A lot of that's kind of revolving around the fact that we're starting to open up some of the businesses, which means there's gonna be risk out there because people are driving. As a result, that may not happen for that reason, because there could be claims.
Right. And Lisa, do you have any input on what your policyholders are feeling?
Yeah, I would say the same as Kevin. They're asking, is State Farm doing anything? When will we be getting those rebates? And absolutely, we're giving our policyholders actually $2 billion in dividends. California auto policyholders with State Farm will receive 27.9% dividend on their premiums for the auto coverage. And that'll be coming in on their bill in June. So if you have auto policies with State Farm, you'll get a rebate in June on your bill. So it won't come in a check form. We're just going to take it off your bill. So lots of questions there. And then, I think Kevin does the same thing. I mean, I'm watching every press release every day that I can get my hands on via, federal, state, local, just trying to educate myself, even on like the PPP loans and just ways that I can help my business owners, and it might even be that I'm opening my office, you need my fax machine, or there's, pieces of paper that you don't understand that I can help you fill out. So just reaching out to them and just offering anything I can at this time. It's scary and it's tough. And I want to know that I was at least doing something to help them out.
Right. Okay, great. Okay, so let's see. Lisa, we'll go back to you to start with this one. Can you talk a little bit about the kinds of coverage every small business owner should have in place that in your opinion?
Oh gosh, that was a long list. We'll start with business insurance, business auto insurance, commercial auto insurance. I think that, you should look at also umbrella policies. Commercial umbrella policies are key. Those I think people are kind of afraid of sometimes because they think, oh my gosh, commercial, I have a personal umbrella, but I don't have a commercial umbrella. And they think it's going to be so much more expensive when it really isn't. So I highly recommend that you look into those. Workers' comp insurance, E&O insurance, and then even looking even further to like key person life insurance, group life insurance, buy-sell agreements. Something happens with your, partner and, you've got to figure out how you're going to buy that other owner out and that family out. You might want to look at a buy-sell agreement. Retirement plans. I know Kevin and I are both Series 6 and 63, so we offer business retirement plans. And that's also helpful for your clients, or not your clients, but your employees as well, because they have, some money there that you've contributed to over time. And if they're struggling, then, it's a great way to retain employees. So lots of insurance there for business owners for sure, but I think there's a need for it. So Kevin?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you mentioned D&O, just in case people don't know acronyms. That's Directors and Officers Insurance, correct? What yours is Errors and Omissions?
Errors and omissions.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said D&O. Isn't that Directors and Officers? Yeah. Okay.
D&O.
Okay.
D&O.
D&O. Got it. Okay. Perfect. Kevin.
Well, I'd like to expand on Lisa's comment that I see could be the more primary thing that people could be facing on the business side is if you have a business partner. The buy-sell agreements are so important. And the best way I could explain that is an example. I had an agency up in Washington, and it was a person that had a service master. They're a franchise. He had a business partner. Long story short, they're supposed to have a golf outing. His partner didn't show up, did a wellness check, found out the gentleman died of a heart attack. And then about a week or two after the funeral, that gentleman, they both put in $250,000 to buy this franchise. His parents came in and knocked on the other owner's door, and they said they wanted our money. But he didn't have a buy-sell agreement in there. And one of the things you can do with the buy-sell agreement is have a life insurance policy on each other so that when they pass, the beneficiary is the partner who can then use those monies to go out and buy out the partner's beneficiaries. In this case, this gentleman's parents. So then they have what they call the first right of refusal. And the first right of refusal means that they can offer to the other owner to buy them out at the set agreed price on the buy-sell agreement. Otherwise, they can put it out in the market, and then that person could have a business partner that they really don't want, or they don't feel it's going to be beneficial for the business. So yeah, those buy-sells are probably one of the things I could see be a benefit, because you got a partner that gets a COVID, they could pass away. Do they have something in place to protect the other partner and their families, both families? So Lisa's dead on with that.
Yeah, no, yeah, I think that there's another, what's the other, there's a phrase about when you transition your business over. I can't think of what the word is. It's not a contingency, but it's
Well, the first right of refusal basically means if you're going to sell, the other partner has the first chance to buy it or deny.
right. Well, I think it's more that if somebody becomes incapacitated, then you have like somebody that can, I can't remember what the
You're
terminology
talking about
is.
like an advocate?
Something
Power of attorney?
similar. No, if I think of it during this call, I'll
Okay.
mention it, but it's
Sounds good.
not
Right.
particularly critical. Okay, great, perfect. Okay, so Kevin, we'll start with you on this one. What, in your opinion, are some of the potential landmines small business owners should be on the lookout for as the shelter-in-place order is modified and then eventually lifted?
Well, that one is just so tough because it's for all of us, not just in our business, but also for our homes too. I still think you need to take precautions because we don't know what's going on right now. There's so many things changing in the regulations with the laws, both on the local, state and federal levels, that we don't know what's going to be happening in the future. So we just all have to kind of keep our ear out there and listen and read and keep ourselves informed. Like Lisa said, we're both doing the same thing. We're out there looking and reading and trying to glean information so we can pass them on to our customers, to the business owners, to the personal side as well. This is a box that's just, it's an indefinite well that we just don't know how deep it's going to go right now. And we're just going to have to pay attention.
Right, Lisa?
Yeah, I agree. I think that business owners, myself included, need to realize that I think with this pre-pandemic that, we're going to have a new normal. So looking for ways to get your products out there, to deliver them. I don't think everyone's going to start shopping up right away. So how can I, keep my business afloat while delivering my products in a new way? And with that said, I would also encourage those business owners to reach out to their agents, have a conversation with them, say, hey, we didn't used to do delivery, but all of a sudden we are now. Or, is that covered on my policy? So having those conversations with your agent is super important. And then to piggyback on what Kevin was saying on the personal side, it's a great opportunity to take an hour in the afternoon to call your agent and go over your homeowner's insurance and auto coverage and talk to them about any concerns that you've had. We're available and happy to help. So.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up the delivery, offering delivery. That is actually what was the initial spark in my brain to have this webinar. Is I thought about the restaurants that were now employing their getting their employees to drive to do deliveries, and I thought, oh, do you have a commercial auto policy? And so so that it's interesting that you bring that up, because that was one of the first things that I thought, just as just a regular person, like, ooh, and what other things do we need to start thinking about? So that's interesting. So
can I add one more thing to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Talking about the delivery side, and I know Lisa will agree with me, a lot of the business policies that we have for restaurants in particular that never delivered before, there's been avenues for us now to open up opportunities to have that as, I'll call it a rider for the sake of our conversation. That's how most people understand it, to be able to cover it for them to be able to do delivery. But now you've also put yourself out there on a risk on an additional area, and that's on your work comp. Now that redefines your work comp policy, and a lot of people don't address that. As a result, that is something that puts the business owner out there at risk as well. So you have to make sure, if you talk about one thing, you talk about a couple other avenues to make sure everything's covered, because there's still an exposure there as well.
That's a really good point about workers' compensation. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And also I wanted to backtrack on something that you said, Lisa, that sparked something in my brain, which is not on my agenda. But yesterday, I guess it was yesterday, CalSavers came out and extended their deadline. For those that are watching that don't know, CalSavers is the state mandated retirement program that employers are required to enroll in unless they have their own standalone 401k policy or plan, And they just extended the deadline for large employers, 100 or more employees, to September 30th. Talking about that, and also I think during this pandemic, what came to light for me is how important it is on a community level to have relationships with your banker, your insurance agent. And so even if, people aren't open right now, contacting you, especially, you guys that can do financial products as well as insurance, talking about those things and getting things in place, so that you're ready when you can reopen. So anyway, it just popped into my head when you were talking about 401ks. Okay, so now we're going to get to the meat of the webinar, which is possible COVID-related claims that employers may face. So we'll go through these one by one, and we're not going to focus on workers' comp because that's a whole nother ballgame. This is mostly for if customers, vendors, or other third parties come into your place of business, some of the things to watch out for. So the first one we'll start with is negligence. So a negligence claim can arise if a business owner puts a visitor at risk by failing to act reasonably when the risk of harm was reasonably foreseeable. For example, a wet floor that is known and not cleaned up could cause a slip and fall injury. As it relates to COVID-19, a negligence claim could arise if an employee becomes infected and a business owner fails to take reasonable steps to protect visitors from exposure to COVID-19. How would you advise business owners as it relates to their insurance coverage and business practices to reduce potential exposure to this type of claim? And I think I'll start with you, Lisa, because you were talking about the sneeze guard.
Oh, I was talking about the sneeze guard earlier, wasn't I?
Yeah.
Prior to this meeting, yeah. If anyone needs a sneeze guard, I have a great company out of Samoa that does a wonderful job. I'll post it on Facebook.
Yeah, perfect. Or put it in the chat too.
So I was talking to Renee earlier about, all of us are trying to, once again, navigate these new waters with this pandemic, and how are we going to handle clients coming into our place of business, customers, and protecting our team. So I'm looking at both sides. How am I going to protect my team from getting sick? How am I going to protect my customers? So putting some things in place. I'm opening up on Monday. So I did get the sneeze guard. I'm, putting some new signs up on my window on how we'll have one person at a time come in. So I'm putting together as many, precautionary measures as I can. Where am I getting that information? From the CDC, I'm going on their website. I actually, and I didn't mention this to you, Renee, but I go on probably daily on the California Chamber site. I'm a member there, and yeah, great information there. So
great.
I'm
Yeah,
just
they're
doing
great.
Everything I possibly can to prepare for that. And that's really the best you can do, because at the end of the day, somebody's got to prove that you were negligent. So if you're doing all that you can, then I think you can feel pretty comfortable. Although I think you need to educate yourself and make sure that you're following the guidelines, state and federal guidelines.
Great. Kevin?
Well, Lisa pretty much spoke my mind on that topic. We're all going to be taking the same precautions. Okay, we have to. But the one thing that I want us all to understand too is that, and Lisa and I talked about this a little bit too, the COVID-19, there really is no coverages for somebody on their policy. This is more of a legal issue, and it's an unfortunate thing, but that's what it's going to come down to, because the COVID is a pandemic. And to give you an idea, every business policy has an anti-terrorism and war exclusion on the policy. It basically says you're not covered if there's a war or if there's a major catastrophe with regards to, I just lost my train of thought. But war is a good example, or terrorism. Those are the two exclusions you usually see on a business policy. This is a pandemic issue. It's also an exclusion as well, because if you put that into the policy, your premiums are going to be so off the charts that nobody would be able to afford a policy, because it's so catastrophic. We're not talking a localized thing. We're talking a national thing now. So all you can do is do as best you can to limit your exposures, but understand it's not going to be an insurance thing. It's going to be more of a legal issue, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I agree. And unfortunately, it becomes a, trying to avoid a lawsuit is sometimes more difficult because you just don't know where it's coming from. And so I think that, yeah, it's important for our business owners to definitely follow the guidelines that the CDC is recommending, and also our county. They are putting out guidelines before businesses reopen, sanitizer for customers, hand washing stations for their employees, distancing and
Yeah.
things like that.
And just so one of the things that I do at my office as well is we have it set up that we've been open the entire time, but we've been open as by appointment. That way, it's similar to what Lisa's doing, one person at a time. Limits the exposure, gives us a chance if they sit at our desk, we can clean up after them with any disinfectants that are considered appropriate for killing this virus. So yeah, we all should be doing that. It doesn't matter if you're an insurance agent or any kind of an office. Retail is going to be a little more difficult, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I wanted to add something too, if I may. If there is a situation where you are being sued or, threatened, whatever it may be due to something like this, even the pandemic, I do still recommend you talk to your insurance agent. Please do give us a call, because most things in insurance, and Kevin can concur, is a case-by-case basis. Yes. I don't want to tell you that it's not covered. I'm going to talk to our professionals, the people that handle claims every day. Maybe go ahead and put the claim through, because there could be there's so many variables. Most of the time, I think with State Farm and Allstate, we're looking for ways to provide coverage for you. And if I can do that, and if I can be a conduit from, you to my company, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help you speak that language to us. And I would like to get it covered if I can. So even though we say, pandemic may not be covered, please feel free to call us, and I think we'll do the best we can.
And if I may piggyback on that, I think I could speak for Lisa too. In my agency, everybody that comes in, we teach them these 3 words, and I have them repeat it: less is more. And the reason why I do this, I don't have them call the 800 number. I want to handle the claim for them, because first of all, that's what you're paying me to do. You're coming to me for advice. And a lot of times people will give out too much information. And I'm going to give you a good example. Renee, I'm going to pick on you a minute, okay?
Okay.
And this, I think Lisa would appreciate. Oh, by the way, Renee, do you know what time it is?
It is 12:22.
So you just failed less is more.
Oh, yes. Sorry. I do know what time it is. You caught me.
It's a yes or no question. And 90% of my customers fail that test. Yeah. And the reason why you did that is because we all are being helpful. And in the claims process, we kind of draw conclusions and try to get to the end of the chase, trying to help the claims adjuster, when actually what you could be doing is opening up a rabbit hole to take it down another path where the claim could be denied. And a lot of times that information is not pertinent to the claim at that given moment. So what we do is we walk you through the claims process to make sure you are covered, so you're not setting yourself up to be declined for a claim. And that's important that you understand that. Would you like to add anything to that, Lisa?
Yeah, it could be as simple as, we're going to just ask a little more questions. Was the rock rolling, or was the rock in the middle of the road when you hit it? That's going to determine the difference in coverage. Secondly, if your damages are $1,500 and your deductible's $2,000, and you could be deemed for this claim, I'm going to recommend you don't file the claim, because it's not, A, you're not going to get paid out anything, and B, you're going to have a claim against your record. So it's just always important to talk to us. That's what we're here for.
Right. No, that makes sense. Yeah, that's great. And you got me. I walked right into it.
I'm sorry. It's a good analogy that people understand.
It is. No, I mean, it's I literally walked right into it. It's okay. So the next type of claim, which is more obscure, but I wanted to cover it, is medical monitoring. And that can arise if a visitor to a business can assert that they were exposed by an infected employee at that business. Basically, it would cover any future medical expenses related to treatment. This is obviously harder to prove. because of the incubation period of the virus and other factors. Are there any specific insurance policies that cover this type of claim, or does it fall under like the general liability umbrella? And Lisa, we'll start with you.
I think it's going to be the same answer as the last one. I mean, it's going to be related to the pandemic. So, as far as coverage, that's going to be a tough one. I could say though, if you knew that you had a team member working in your office that has been sick, then yeah, you're going to be negligent for sure. So that's going to be a tough one to fight. So once again, if you could prove that you put everything in place prior to opening up your doors, for myself, and I would be happy to help anyone with this, I've created different phases for our office, in addition to 4 questions my teams to ask themselves every time before they come into work. And, do you have a temperature? Have you been exposed? Do you have symptoms? Those types of things. And that hopefully, it's printed out and, relayed to my team, and hopefully that would eliminate any of those concerns for my customers.
Kevin?
I agree with that. The only thing I would say is that if somebody has the claim, we would follow the channels and say, if you insist on us doing the claim, we will process it. And we'll process it probably in 2 means. One is you have medical coverage, and then you also have liability. You'll start with the medical, and then it'll defer then to the liability. And the reason why that is most policies do not have a very large medical coverage, usually 10, 25, 50,000. And then the liability would be kicking in after that. And all we can do is submit the claim, and I recommend you do that. File the claim. We'll walk you through the process. Then it comes down to the underwriters from there, whether or not it'll be approved or declined. And they'll usually give you an explanation for either.
Right. Just something as a sidebar, if a business has to incur expenses to protect their business, like the sneeze shield or face masks or hand sanitizer, is that something that they can get reimbursed through a workers' comp policy or through their, put it in as a claim? Is that happening at all with insurance carriers, or if you're aware of it?
No, it's going to be a tax write-off.
Yeah.
Like everything else, buying paper for the copy machine, But yeah, not currently, because there's no claim.
Right, and if they're, and just to piggyback on that, let's just say for the example that you could file it, Lisa's example about you have a $2,000 deductible, $1,500, your deductible, what you're probably spending on that's going to be a lot less than what your deductible is. So it doesn't even pay. Because then you get dinged for having a claim, even though nothing was paid out, and you end up paying surcharges and paying a higher premium. So that's where we come in. You talk to us, we'll walk you through the process. But to piggyback on that, no, you don't really have any coverage of that. It's more of a business expense.
Okay, that makes sense. The next type of claim is consumer protection and claims for misleading advertising. Businesses will most likely be required to post advertisements listing the steps they're taking to prevent spread of COVID-19 in their workplace. These advertisements could potentially open a business up to claims for misleading, incomplete, or false advertising if the claims made are factually inaccurate. What would you recommend to your policyholders to minimize this risk? I think one of my examples was avoiding guarantee language related to exposure levels at their company versus another company, or we're safe to come here, or that kind of language. I lost track of who we started with last time. Sorry, Kevin, we'll start with you.
I'm going to go back with my 3 words: less is more.
Yeah.
That should cover everything, because you don't want it. Nobody should ever use the word guarantee unless it's an actual warranty that you're applying to something like services rendered on a vehicle or things like that. But now to sit there and say that you have preventative measures, if you're not, well, shame on you. But I don't think you need to go to the extreme that you're guaranteeing anything, because that would just set yourself up for failure.
But do you worry that maybe some of the language that the county is going to impose that businesses post could be a red flag?
Well, yeah, if the county is trying to tell somebody how to do something, I do have a real concern with it because they don't know the business. And every business is different. And you can't sit there and tag that for a blanket for all businesses, because I'm not a restaurant. I don't serve food, right? But I do have paperwork that people might handle. And the virus can be transferred to the work surface and things like that. But you got other places that have more opportunities for exposure, and some are less based on the clientele and the type of business. So yeah, if the county's trying to put something out there like that, then that comes down to a legal issue more than it does an insurance issue, unfortunately, because they're forcing something onto a business that may not be relevant or prevalent.
It's funny you should say that, because with me getting ready to open back up on Monday, I'm, contemplating what I am going to put on my door. And I think, the message is going to be doing my best to follow CDC guidelines. And I don't even know that I'll print those out.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking, I have to look over, because I know the county has, their lists of things that businesses need to have in place before they can open, or even the soft opening. And it's, having access to hand sanitizer for customers, employees, hand washing, 6 feet of distancing, and a bunch of other things. I'd have to pull it up. It's not on the top of my head. And I'm guessing because the restaurants have that self-certification poster that they can, that says that they're in compliance. I just wonder if that, puts a level of a burden level on some of our employers and small businesses. Because, for me, like if I go into a restaurant, this is just me, me personally talking. If I go into a restaurant, I can't see what's going on in the kitchen. I can't see, what you're doing maybe in your employee bathroom, or, after I leave my table, how you're disinfecting. And so I worry that is an extra burden, that somebody could make a claim that they didn't see something happening, but it's happening behind the scenes.
If I may add to that, using the word following compliance is one thing. I would generalize it more in saying that we as a business are doing our best to be as compliant as possible. Here's why. Like I was at Winco, they got things marked out. If somebody really wanted to be, stringent about it, are they really 6 feet apart? Okay. What if one is 5'11"? Well, now they're no longer compliant, right? Right. And then here's another example. I happened to be at a restaurant where I was picking up my food, and I know the girl that worked there, and the lady that was there in front of us had them come out to the car and had her sign a receipt, and she was upset that she had to sign the paper because she could be exposed to that paper. And she insisted that she put the bag of food in the back end of the trunk so that she wouldn't be exposed. Well, guess what? She's still going to grab that bag that was handled by that same person with the paper. So, you can't sit there and you can overthink this all day long. You're never going to be completely compliant. You're going to have an exposure no matter what, because you don't think about everything. You just think about the immediate, but you forget about, like you said, the things behind the scene. So it's going to be almost impossible to cover everything to be completely compliant. It's not possible.
Thank you for that. The final claim that I have listed is misrepresentation, which, pretty much piggybacks on the false advertising, which is, stating that your product can, cure COVID-19 or, is better than another one because our, the risk level of contracting COVID in our facility is less, it's really common sense things to not say, hopefully. But is there, what coverage handles, where does misrepresentation claims fall under a commercial policy? And Lisa, we'll start with you.
Well, we're going back to COVID again. So it's going to be, honestly, once again, it's going to be case by case. So, it just depends on if you just really out and out gave out wrong information, or if you did have all precautionary, measures in place, and this person is just relentless with wanting to sue you. And was it misrepresentation, or is it an errors and omission, issue where it was something that you said, some advice you gave? So a lot of variables there that I would think you would have to look at case by case.
Yeah. Kevin, I'm guessing your advice is less is more.
No, actually, yes. But the thing is that Lisa's right. There is some riders you can do on your policies. There's some, depends on who's writing the policy, because like we can do it on what we call Allstate paper, or we can broker it. And different underwriting companies have different standards that they put in as far as what they call general coverage. And then you have what we call a rider or an add-on. And sometimes one of those is for like employee dishonesty or advertising. And then even then there's exclusions about, was it intentional or not intentional? Did they knowingly do it? There's so many parameters there that you just don't know. And then lastly, like Lisa said, I'm in agreement. What was the cause? Well, they're talking about COVID. It's kind of like if you have a fire at your house because of an earthquake, what caused the fire? The earthquake. If you don't have earthquake insurance, you're not covered. So the same thing here. If you made an advertisement and it was for the COVID-19 and it's not covered, it's kind of the same thing. What's the cause? Yeah. So yeah, if you do it, shame on you is what I'm going to say, because you shouldn't be doing that. It's just going to set you up for legal issues.
Right. Okay, great. I have two more questions. One is, we touched on a little bit, I'm going to skip the order of my questions. We had talked about the insurance credits that carriers are offering. The California Insurance Commissioner, Lara, had come out and basically recommended or made sure that people did offer policy credits for, let's see, personal auto, commercial auto, and some other policies. And you guys, I had already talked about that that's in the works, that your policyholders are going to see those credits. Yeah, and that you might extend it, Kevin, right? That's that Allstate may extend it.
Yeah, Allstate's, it's in discussion. We haven't made any final decisions, but it's in our own personal rumor mill.
Okay.
And on the commercial side, I just wanted to add too, there are some things to look at for business owners. And I think, in our initial conversations with our customers, business customers particularly, talking about, hey, my business is closed. I don't have employees working. What can I do on the workers' comp side? When you look at different policies, some of them are based on different things. Sometimes we'll base the premium on gross sales. Sometimes we'll base the premium, such as with workers' comp, on how much your payroll is. So if your payroll has declined substantially, call your agent, have them, reevaluate that policy and hopefully lower your premium for now until you get those employees back and working. And I think that's what he was talking about in terms of credits, on the business side. You can do that. So that is something that, I don't know, Kevin probably is assessing too. I'm trying to just keep a pulse of my business owners, where they're at right now, watching as they begin to start opening, seeing if we need to adjust those, the payroll. Some of the businesses I'm working with were not, because maybe it's a beauty salon. They're not working right now, but boy, when they open up, it's 7 days a week, so maybe, I'm thinking, so maybe we don't need to adjust that payroll just yet, depending on how long we go out with this. So it's going to be kind of a, hit and miss here, but, and will be assessed here pretty soon, hopefully. But yeah, the remnants of this it's going to be interesting to see how, all these cards fall and at what time.
And if I may piggyback, one thing I was remiss in sharing that I plan to share is tying in with the workers' comp. Like for me, I have staff working from home. Well, that changes my work comp policy because they're not in the office.
Right.
So that could lower the exposure because they're not in front of a customer and they're not traveling, they're at home. Or it could change the entire policy completely, and I may have to rewrite a new one based on who I have it with. I'm not saying me in particular, but your type of business. Your work comp is written based on the type of business you're in for the risk factors that are involved with regards to possible claims. somebody working with dynamite versus cutting hair, well, we can tell you who's going to have the higher risk, right? So I'm using it as an extreme, but I'm trying to drive home a point. And if you're not doing that, and it is not just about your income, it's also about the risk itself, has that lessened as well. And so that's some things that you should be talking to myself and Lisa about, because that could affect your premium dramatically.
Well, yeah, I think that, I think that goes to restaurants that are now doing delivery, or even retail stores if they're limited to curbside and delivery right now. So somebody in their store has to deliver packages, and even if it's going from their store to the post office, that's money, that's inventory. And if they get into a car accident or get, God forbid, get robbed on the way, that's another issue to worry about. But also making sure that you have your workers' comp. You might have to reclassify some employees if they're now suddenly being delivery drivers for 6 months instead of being a barista or a line cook. Again, I just want to hammer home the point that it's really important to have a personal relationship. And we're blessed to be in a small community where we can, get a hold of our agents or walk into their office and get that personal interaction. Maybe not totally in person right now, but know that, you're not just a number. And I think that's good to, if anybody takes away anything from this crazy time, is that, getting back into your community is really, really important, because there's support there. And I've seen that. I mean, I'm amazed continuously the outpouring of support that our community shows each other. And I think it's wonderful.
We'll see on the business commercial side for auto, because you brought this up, and it's a good point that Lisa and I kind of danced around, but let's be a little more specific. On a commercial auto, you also have what we call hired auto. Okay, and now the question is, whose policy takes place? The person that you're having now do deliveries, we need to look at their personal policy and say, okay, well, this now needs to be redefined as a business use, not just a personal use. And so now you have risk exposures there. And a lot of times, is there enough limitation on the one policy, then the other one might kick in. It's just like with the underinsured type policy. On the personal side, you have your liability side, P&L, and then you have your underinsured, uninsured. Okay, so you have that same kind of crossover there as well. So this is one of the reasons why you should talk to us for exactly those two reasons, because you have more exposure. You need to possibly have a rewrite of the policy or an addendum added to it. Lisa, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so you kind of added the hired auto. Also consider calling us too if your employees are using their vehicles.
Yeah, that's my point.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. If they're, then there is, a policy you can put in place for that too. Because I think what business owners don't understand is, if your employee leaves with the bank bag to go to the bank for you, and they're driving their vehicle and they get in an accident and someone finds out they work for you, guess who they're going to sue? So you just want to make sure that you have that coverage in place for sure. And now they're out on the road even more because you're offering delivery services.
Right. So the final question I have, so if anybody who is watching has some, have some questions, go ahead and put them into the chat, or I can unmute people if they want to speak their question. So the last question I have is about business interruption insurance. We hear a lot about that, and I think there's some confusion as to when and when it doesn't apply. My understanding is that you have to have actual physical damage loss to have a business interruption claim, and that since the SARS outbreak several years ago, viruses and bacteria and things like that have been excluded. And also, is business interruption insurance an additional policy, or is that, under a larger umbrella policy? Is that, like a rider or a separate policy that you need to have? And Kevin, we can start with you if you're ready.
Yeah, Lisa said it before, you got to call us, because it's a case-by-case type situation, how we can address those things. I know for me, I did some reading up, and some of those things for the interruptions you have, with the SBA, there's actual loans you could get that could be forgivable, or I think the interest rates are really low for, I think it was called emergency, oh, I forget the term now.
The
Loss of-
the idle
Pardon?
loan, the economic
Yes.
injury disaster loan.
Yes. That, because if you don't have it on your policy now, you can't get it because it's going to be based on the date and time of the policy being added to the policy. So it means anything that's happened in the past is pre-existing. And so you wouldn't be able to get that coverage. Now, going forward, yeah, you might. But again, it's going to come back to the fact this is a COVID-19 situation. It's a pandemic. It would be an exclusion. Just like anti-terrorist situation or a war, same situation. It wouldn't be covered. So you need to look at some of your SBAs, your chambers are a good example. Talk to them. They may have some of these opportunities like we're doing today. You might have a source that we didn't know about that can help in those situations. But on the insurance side, there's not much we can do to change that as far as I can see.
I can piggyback on that too. And I would also say, and Kevin and I talked about this a little bit too, is the pandemic coverage is excluded not just because you can't really prove how people got it. It's excluded because it would bankrupt carriers. There's a reason that State Farm doesn't offer flood insurance anymore. There's a reason that the only earthquake coverage you can get is California earthquake through the Earthquake Authority. There's a reason for that, because carriers couldn't succumb to the claims that would result from a catastrophe like that. And as you can see now, I mean, the carriers would go bankrupt. We saw it with the fires in California this year.
Yeah, I was just going to bring up fire insurance.
I mean, if you weren't a large company such as the companies we work for, there are a lot.
Oh, your mic's cutting out.
Maybe I'll scoot a little closer. So yeah, if you weren't with a larger carrier, it could be that your carrier, couldn't provide coverage because they did go bankrupt. So I know we get a bad rap on this sometimes. It's like, yeah, of course they don't cover it. Well, there is a reason, because it would be catastrophic.
Okay, well, those are all my questions. If anybody who is listening in has a question, let me know. Or if you guys want to finish with closing remarks, you're welcome to. Kevin, we'll start with you.
Well, I think you've done a great job today, Renee. Thank you for allowing us to be participating in this. Lisa and I, even though we compete as far as different agencies, we do have the same common interest. We want our customers to be taken care of, first and foremost. And coming to us and asking us questions, there is no such thing as a dumb question, okay? And a good example is yesterday I had a customer call up, and I didn't even know for sure if we did or not on this coverage, but he accidentally put the wrong gas in his car. Ended up having a $2,500 claim for his engine. We covered it. He had a zero comprehensive deductible. It means he's getting back all of his money. So talking to us is very important, because there are times where a claim can benefit you because you didn't have the policy written correctly because you sat down and talked to your agent. But don't assume that when you say anything with regards, well, I got the standard coverage, or I got the best coverage, or whatever, because best coverage is based on the individual. It's not based on because a lot of people think, well, I got the max, or I got the minimums, or whatever. We don't know what that is for you, because it's personal. So talk to us. We're here to help. We're not here to try to just sell you something.
Lisa?
My turn. Yeah, I agree with Kevin, and just talking about, I mentioned we're not in competition, and I always say that I feel like my competition is online companies, because I truly believe for insurance, when it's regarding, your livelihood, then you should have a local agent, somebody that you can sit down with. And I know a lot of us agents here in Humboldt County, I'm reaching out to them all the time. We're talking about, different things we can and can't do. And, if I can't do something for my customer, I may send them to Kevin or to a broker, just because we want the best for you. We're in the community with you. I'm going to see you at the grocery store. You could come by my house. So it's a whole different environment. I'm not just an employee. I'm trying to keep the doors open, and it doesn't stop from 8 to 5. So anyhow, again, we're here for you. We would love to help. Ask us questions, and yeah, be safe and stay well.
Can I add one last thing for Lisa and I? The one thing that you haven't brought up, but both of us do, and we've mentioned it just a little bit on the business side, is we do life insurance. And a lot of our customers do not have life insurance. They keep thinking tomorrow, I'll get it next month. Well, eventually that premium becomes so costly you can't afford it. Or in a situation like this, some of the underwriting companies aren't writing insurance for you because of the risk right now. We are, but we have some limitations. And basically one of them is we can't do the basic policies right now without having a full physical done. You know, urine example, blood draws, that kind of thing. And I know Lisa would probably have the same situation there too. We have our limitations, but you know, a lot of times you wait, it's too late. So if you're going to be looking at something for the future, you should be considering those things too for your family. Because if you think your car is important, I'm going to ask you a question. And I think Lisa would agree, which is more important, your car, and you're trying to take care of the risk with the other people you might damage, or your family. I think about my family first. I'm sorry. So let's think about their future too. Would you agree with that, Lisa?
Absolutely. Yeah. You can't just insure the golden eggs. You got to insure the goose. And you'll never be, yep. And you'll never be younger or healthier than you are today. So if you're looking at life insurance, the price goes up every year on your birthday, the older you get. So you want to put something in place.
Yeah, and I think it's important too that, you know, as we navigate through the next 6, 12, 18, 24 months, that businesses, you know, continue to contact their insurance agents and others as their business model changes. I mean, things are changing, like adding delivery and the other things that we've talked about, you know, driving to the post office with, you know, 20 packages because now you're doing online sales. Well, you know, do you have coverage for that? You know, do you need to update your auto policy because now you have employees driving? So I think, you know, that's a great takeaway for people to have that relationship and check in. Like, hey, you know, Kevin, I started doing this in my business. Am I covered? Instead of just assuming that their policy that they got, you know, 7 years ago when they opened is still all they need. So,
True.
Well, thank you both. Thank you. I appreciate you both so much for doing this, and I hope everybody that was watching has enjoyed it. And let me make sure. Do we have any questions? Oops, sorry, I'm putting that. Oh, Diana Rios jumped on and she just wanted to say thank you everyone for your time. Thank you, Renee, for putting this together. Thank you, Diana. It was sweet of you to jump on. She had Rotary, so it was nice for her to jump on. Great. So with that, I will say thank you and goodbye. And until next time, thanks everybody. Bye. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Kevin.